Welcome to viewers on BBC One. We have had news from Buckingham Palace that the Queen is under medical supervision at Balmoral. The doctors had become concerned for her health and she is now being under the supervision of doctors at Balmoral. It is understood that she is comfortable and that immediate family members have been informed, with of course that news that she's under medical supervision raising concerns for her health. Yesterday she pulled out of a virtual Privy Council after doctors ordered her to rest. That was after a very full day on Tuesday, when we see a picture here from the Queen at Balmoral as she met with the new Prime Minister Liz Truss and invited her then to form a government. She'd previously of course met Boris Johnson, so it was a very busy day for the Queen, who has largely been out of the public eye. We've known that she's had mobility issues for some time, and the reason for the meetings with the outgoing and incoming Prime Ministers at Balmoral was because of those mobility concerns for the Queen. In the Commons, the Speaker Lindsay Hoyle has said Queen Elizabeth is in our thoughts and prayers. Let me bring in the royal commentator Robert Hardman joining us on the line now. Robert, of course this is going to cause concern that the Queen is under medical supervision at Balmoral. The initial report that we had said that she is understood to be comfortable and family members have been informed.
Yes, I mean, the palace don't normally issue bulletins on the Queen's health unless it's significant. I mean, the last time the sort of statement, as it were, came out of the blue was to let us know earlier this year that she'd been diagnosed with COVID. But on the whole, the view is if she's not undergoing some sort of hospital medical procedure, then these are private matters. So clearly the fact that the palace have seen fit to put out a statement, it is grounds for concern. I mean, the fact she's comfortable, she's at Balmoral, where she's very much more relaxed at Balmoral than probably anywhere else. I mean, that's a positive. But I think, echoing the words of the Speaker, I think all our thoughts will be with her at this time.
And Liz Truss, the Prime Minister, has said the whole country will be deeply concerned by the news from Buckingham Palace this lunchtime. She's added, "My thoughts and the thoughts of people across our United Kingdom are with Her Majesty the Queen and her family at this time." She has sort of pulled away from the public eye, hasn't she, because of those concerns around her mobility. But nonetheless, of course, she has been absolutely central this week to what has been happening in terms of the politics and the new Prime Minister and the ceremony of that happening at Balmoral because of the concerns around her health.
Yes, I mean, this week we were reminded of our absolutely central role at the apex of our constitutional system. It is the Queen who appoints Prime Ministers, and that she was very, very keen and determined to undertake that particular duty. Obviously, in recent months, we've seen the Prince of Wales taking on more and more of her regular duties. We saw, for example, him standing in at the state opening of Parliament, him representing her at the Commonwealth Day observation. He's frequently now, for several years now, taken her place at the Cenotaph on Remembrance Sunday. So, little by little, he's taken on these key roles. But that central role of appointing the Prime Minister, which goes to the absolute heart of our monarchy. She was determined to do that, and I think it was a demanding day, because it's not just a case of a handshake and a photo. You've got to say goodbye to one Prime Minister, welcome another. There's a lot of toing and froing. There are sort of cameras coming in and out. It was a big day, and clearly, I think it has left her, as the palace saying, under medical supervision. So I think there will be all sorts of speculation, but I think the two key things are that she is comfortable and she's where she's happiest.
Stay with us if you can, Robert. Yes, as Robert was saying, we have had a statement from Buckingham Palace. It's brief. It says, following further evaluation this morning, the Queen's doctors are concerned for Her Majesty's health and have recommended she remain under medical supervision. The Queen remains comfortable and at Balmoral. We can see her here with Liz Truss. This was on Tuesday when she met the incoming Prime Minister at Balmoral, and Liz Truss has said the whole country will be deeply concerned by the news from Buckingham Palace this lunchtime. She says, my thoughts and the thoughts of people across our United Kingdom are with Her Majesty the Queen and her family at this time. And we understand the Queen's immediate family members have been informed. Of course, this latest announcement has raised concerns about Her Majesty's health. She is under medical supervision at Balmoral. Let me bring in our health editor, Hugh Pym. What sort of medical assistance would be on hand at Balmoral, Hugh?
Well, I think, Joanna, the first thing to say is it's highly unusual for Buckingham Palace to make a statement like this about the Queen's health, and to say that doctors are concerned. That is certainly something that we haven't heard before in so many words, and that she's under medical supervision at Balmoral. We know she's got mobility issues, and these have been the case for a while now. We know that she was unable to attend the virtual Privy Council meeting, even by a video link. And she's 96, and she is frail, and there are all sorts of possible complications around her condition. But the fact that doctors are concerned, and we have had this statement from Buckingham Palace, I think is very significant. And obviously everyone's thoughts will be very much with Her Majesty.
Yes, let's take a look at the Twitter feed of Liz Truss, the Prime Minister. She has put out a message. She's been in the Commons along with MPs. This is the statement that she has put out. She has said the whole country will be deeply concerned by the news from Buckingham Palace this lunchtime. My thoughts and the thoughts of people across our United Kingdom are with Her Majesty the Queen and her family at this time. And we do know that the immediate family members have been informed. Hugh, you mentioned there the mobility issues that we've been aware of. She has withdrawn to a large extent from the public eye, and a lot of her engagements have been carried out actually via Zoom, where she's appeared in good spirits, but she has not been in a position to carry on being as active, obviously, as she was until, you know, really quite recently.
Yes, I mean, the fact that she wasn't able to, or was maybe advised not to do that video link yesterday for the Privy Council, suggests that she must have been in a certain amount of discomfort. Now, the report from Buckingham Palace that we've just had says she's comfortable and at Balmoral. So that maybe is a suggestion there is no sense of an emergency here or an urgent issue, but doctors are concerned enough, and the Palace feels it's important to put this statement out there. But yes, these mobility issues have been there for a while. She had COVID earlier in this year. So she is 96, she is more vulnerable. That is without a doubt going to be very much playing on doctors' minds. And we'll have to await further updates.
Mm-hmm. And looking at this picture of her, I mean, that lovely smile, she had a big job to do there. She does look frail.
Yes, and she has been able to attend some events, possibly not involving too much walking or standing up. Certainly people of that age develop more, say, back problems or discomfort walking around or standing for too long. So engagements that she was able to attend were very much not involving too much moving around. For the state opening, that was considered to be, she would have felt that was too much to do, so didn't attend that. But we saw her during the Platinum Jubilee at certain events which were more manageable. But clearly now there has been a deterioration, and she's very much at Balmoral under medical supervision.
And we are just, of course, bringing you up to date, if you're just joining us at home, with the news that we have had from Buckingham Palace. That statement saying that the Queen is under medical supervision at Balmoral after doctors became concerned for her health. This news came as MPs were gathered in the Commons. We've had a statement from Liz Truss, the Prime Minister. We also understand that Prince William is heading to Balmoral. We know that the Queen's immediate family members have been informed, and we are just hearing that the Duke of Cambridge is travelling to Balmoral. And Hugh, do we know, are other family members at Balmoral with her?
I think at the moment that's not entirely clear. She obviously received Boris Johnson on Tuesday, the outgoing Prime Minister, and then Liz Truss arriving, and the Queen invited Liz Truss to form a government. So she had those visits. It would have been a very tiring day, going through what she'd have seen. The Queen is very important as her constitutional role, appointing the leader of the largest party in the Commons to form a government, and that was Liz Truss. And she'd been very keen to do that. What we don't know is to what extent she was feeling quite frail at that point, and that was difficult for her. Certainly, you know, she does look frail in some of the images we saw that day. And in terms of family who are there or thereabouts, we've just heard some are heading for Balmoral, indicating a degree of concern amongst the royal family, amongst the Queen's immediate family.
Which would be natural, because whatever, you know, the fact that doctors are obviously have said that there is concern, and she is 96, you would expect, of course, family members to want to go and see her.
Yes, I'm sure a call to family members saying doctors are concerned would have resulted in them wanting to be there. Close members of the family, the Duke of Cambridge, the Prince of Wales, will want to be there and to hear from doctors what the situation is. And what we don't know is whether any further medical treatment might be needed, possibly even going to a local hospital or going to a hospital. We simply don't know. There is no further information about that, other than that she's comfortable and under supervision at Balmoral at this moment.
Thank you, Hugh. Let's bring in Chris Mason. Chris, we are, of course, covering this statement from Buckingham Palace that the Queen is under medical supervision at Balmoral, and there has been some political reaction.
There has been political reaction, and you could see the faces of concern within the House of Commons whilst listening to the statements that we brought you a little earlier on energy prices from the Prime Minister. There were notes being handed around. The Prime Minister was briefed, as were the Leader of the Opposition and the Speaker, and people shortly after that left the chamber, and you could tell from the tenor and tone and the facial expressions in there the concern that there is here about the Queen's health. Since then, as you mentioned, but for viewers just joining us, a statement from the Prime Minister saying the whole country will be deeply concerned by the news from Buckingham Palace this lunchtime. My thoughts and the thoughts of people across the United Kingdom are with Her Majesty the Queen and her family at this time. As we've been reflecting, it's been a busy week for the monarch, with that handover of power, her playing that crucial constitutional role in the resignation of one Prime Minister and the assumption of office of another. And we've also known, in terms of her interactions with political leaders, that they have dialed down a little bit, certainly in terms of the physical exertions required of her to perform them, have dialed down in recent months. So, for instance, the weekly audience with the Queen, that is one of the great privileges of being Prime Minister, historically has been a face-to-face occasion, usually at Buckingham Palace, occasionally elsewhere. More recently, there was a precedent, of course, of COVID, but more recently, since then, has been something conducted primarily on the telephone. So there's been that recognition in the interactions between the monarch and politics here at Westminster of the Queen's age and her frailty. But the overriding impression here at Westminster this lunchtime, the same as it will be around the country, one of deep concern from our political leaders and politicians more broadly.
Yes, and it is news, obviously, that people will be digesting, as Liz Truss says, with concern, that news from Buckingham Palace that the Queen is under medical supervision at Balmoral. We understand she is comfortable. We also know that Prince William is travelling to Balmoral. And Chris, we're just watching some pictures of the Queen from earlier this summer on a rare outing. As you were just describing there, a lot of her work had switched to being online because of the mobility issues, and we can see here when she was on this visit, she had the help of a stick. And we were talking on Tuesday when she was at Balmoral saying goodbye to Boris Johnson and greeting Liz Truss, quite how much she's seen over that 70-year reign in terms of all of the prime ministers that have been in and out of those audiences that you were describing with her, 15 prime ministers.
Yeah, an extraordinary longevity, an extraordinary period of being plugged in at the very highest level to politics, reading government briefings daily, that counsel, that wise counsel that she could offer because of the experience that she has to prime ministers who inevitably have been in post for a much shorter period of time than she has as monarch. And when you speak to prime ministers past, they'll reflect on the sanctity of those conversations. They won't necessarily tell you about precisely what was said between the Queen and them in particular moments, but they will absolutely acknowledge the importance of them because that was a conversation that you can have, and I'm sure it was the same for the Prime Minister just the other day talking to the Queen, where you know it's not going to leak and end up in the newspapers, and you can tap into that longevity of experience because the Queen has met over the years so many heads of state and government, whether it be at state occasions at Buckingham Palace or the Commonwealth heads of government summits that she's so passionate about, the Commonwealth, that legacy, if you like, following on from the years of empire. So, you know, here is a monarch, yes, but also a crucially political figure in the constitution of the UK.
Struggling to hear Chris over here. And Chris, the absolutely key role that the Queen plays in all of these state events is you know, something that has been a very important feature, and not least when we look at this picture and also think about the fact that as power passed from Boris Johnson through to Liz Truss, for that short period between the two prime ministers being in office, executive power rested with the Queen.
Yeah, she sits at the apex of our constitutional system and is the bookmark, if you like, through all of our big political moments and some of the smaller ones that kind of oil the wheels of how the British state works. And in fact, you know, just the other day, she was meant to chair what's known as the Privy Council, a gathering in private of most senior political figures, and that was postponed in order to give her time to rest after the meeting she'd had with an outgoing Prime Minister in Boris Johnson and an incoming one in Liz Truss. But in a public sense, her role, the role of the monarch, absolutely central. The state opening of Parliament, the Queen's speech, as it's called, delivered by the monarch, but written by the government. That emphasis that you see on days like that of how the monarch and the broader royal household and Parliament sit and work together. Now, we saw, of course, in the most recent Queen's speech, another example of the Queen taking a more backseat approach, it not being delivered by her, that recognition of her age and her growing frailty, but also that desire, as illustrated very vividly the other day. We saw the photos, didn't we, from Balmoral just the other day, of wanting to be there, even in her advanced years and at an advanced age, at that central constitutional moment of the passage of power from one Prime Minister to another, and as you say, albeit briefly, whilst the motorcades made their way through the Aberdeenshire countryside, that executive power lying with her after the resignation of one Prime Minister and for the couple of minutes it took for Liz Truss to arrive and be appointed as his successor.
Chris, if people are just joining us, just to say that the statement from Buckingham Palace has said that the Queen is under medical supervision at Balmoral. It is understood she is in a comfortable condition and that immediate members of the family have been informed, and we understand that Prince William is currently now heading to Balmoral. The Prime Minister, Liz Truss, has put out a message to say her thoughts, as are the thoughts of the whole country, with Her Majesty and her family. BBC News.